Welcome to the Regroup Hour, the podcast that's all about how we make and manage change by building a bedrock of self-care. Self-care that comes from self-awareness and self-compassion. This is a gentle hour-ish to take some time out for yourself, to simply be and see whatever this time brings. It truly is an opportunity to regroup. I met Abi through the work I do with women going through menopause. And one of the things that she said struck me as being very profound and very important, and made me think that she would be a wonderful person to have as a guest here. And she said, when you understand your hormones and the impact they have on every aspect of your life, then you are in a position to choose what's best for you to feel your most vibrant. So I think, there's so much more evidence these days around the importance of hormones, and we can only, we can see this in spades with how menopause is becoming a household word now, how so much more attention is being paid to the importance of creating that balance in our endocrine system, or where in the way that our hormones all interplay with each other. And so understanding the impact of our hormones on us is absolutely vital to how we can learn to feel our best. And Abi is an expert in women's hormonal health, but with her background in movement, she used to be a PT originally, and we'll hear more about this from her when she joins us. But with her background in movement, what she has learned is how to use the body to help rebalance what's going on with the hormones. And I experienced some of her magic when I hosted a talk that she gave, and she invited everybody to move through our ages to the brilliant Bridgerton soundtrack. And if you've watched Bridgerton, then you'll have a sense of how those violins just, can really get the blood flowing. I'm very mindful Bridgerton was a bit saucy, but that wasn't what we were doing. But that thing of being able to recognize like how your body feels through those different ages, from childhood all the way through to, to whatever age we are now, was just a wonderful way of coming into our body and really just feeling how it feels to move freely. So there may be an opportunity, I hope, during the episode to do some of that sort of movement as well, that kind of like free movement. And we'll see how that goes. Now, I mentioned that Abi specializes in working with women, but with her background, it also includes working with men too. And one of the things I'm going to be asking her is about how we can understand more about how men's hormonal system influences the way that they're feeling, both mentally and physically, and what are the things that are useful for men to pay attention to. So this is very much an episode that is designed to be open to everybody, and I really hope that you get something really useful from it, and if nothing else, you will get to listen to the gorgeous Abi Adams. There we go, Abi Adams, all the way from Devon, joining us, having just moved house. I mean, literally, have you just arrived this evening?
We've just arrived after a 4.5 hour drive, from London. I tell you what, I couldn't wait to get in. It was literally I pushing my children over, pushing my husband out the way. get the computer on. What's wrong with the Wi-Fi? And then I see some fraudulent activity on my bank account. I'm like, my goodness, I don't know where to start. But Henny, I'm coming. I'm coming.
Oh. So the kids are scattered, husbands wherever.
I've
Fraudulent activity is now dealt with, just
yes.
to be
Now I
clear, that
can.
is now dealt with. And we can breathe and we can enjoy however long we spend together, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever this conversation ends up being. But oh, well, we're very grateful, Abby. I say we because I'm speaking for everybody who's listening as well. Very grateful that you've chosen to give us this time, considering what else you've got on your plate right now. So we're
Especially, Henny,
grateful.
it's so lovely, isn't it? I mean, it's it's just what needs to happen, isn't it? I know gratitude's a great thing, but when something creates great alchemy, it just has to happen, doesn't it? So this conversation, I feel, is one of those things that was is meant to happen right now. So, and I what for me, it's the understanding that when you are passionate about something, when you love something so much, no matter what is going on in the world, you create that time for it. And I think this is one of the things that inspired Project Woman, which I know we're going to go into, and we're going to talk more about this kind of stuff. But it's for women and men to realize, like, what is important to you, and what is drawing your energy. Where are you allowing yourself to be led? Because ultimately, everything is a choice. Everything is your choice.
No, that reminds me of a very sort of non kind of well-being type example, but also something which I recognized as being true at the time, which was when I worked in a very corporate environment. And everybody in that environment, and then and now, and even more so now, I'm seeing with my clients, it's like I haven't got time to get everything done. Um you know, everything always sort of feeling as though it's like packed, up to the gunnels kind of thing. And yet, one of the things that my CEO at the time used to say was, but when you have a holiday coming up, then you can create the time, because they can sort of create the space around it. And at the time, I remember thinking, okay, yeah, but that's just because, you kind of have to, because you're going away. But actually, it's because the motivation for having that time away, investing that time in yourself, which is really what a holiday is, drove the ability to be able to clear the space, to be able to go and have the holiday. And obviously, there's a whole load of other stuff wrapped around that as well, that, often you get back from holiday and find that the work that you left for other people hasn't been done. So it's not quite so clean and simple. But it's this idea that what you have a driver toward doing is the thing that you can create.
Mm.
And I think, yeah, so I think that you coming here today is clearly because you have created that space for yourself. And it would have been very easy to have said, you know what, I haven't got time. I need to move house, which is actually what you're doing. But you've created this time. So, yeah, we are immensely grateful to
Thank you.
you.
You know what just came to
Um,
them when you were saying that, Henny,
mm,
sorry,
yeah, no, go.
was our understanding of permission. And I had this when I was working in a small corporate office, and I knew the founder of this company because he was my mate's brother. And I remember just I was first of all, I was offering yoga classes, and then I was doing in-house massage. And what I could see was these people were rushing into the yoga class, or they weren't showing up because they was worried of their workload, or that they were being perceived that they wasn't doing their work, and then they would have to stay later. And I put this over in a very gentle way to the owner and said, they don't feel that they've got permission to come. And he got very defensive. Yes, they do. They know they've got permission to come. They can come if they want to, but they've just got to get the work done. But you're not giving them the permission. You know, there is an underlying, like the way you're presenting to me,
The
they don't believe.
culture, the cultural story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the permission. And when we realize that we have the permission, you know, why do we create this time for holiday? Well, someone signed it off, so I've got permission to go on holiday. The autonomy behind the permission, that idea of permission is, something that we all need to look into, I think.
Oh, I'm loving this, Abby. And I have a feeling that this is a very, very strong thread in the work that you do
Mm.
about giving ourselves permission to come into our bodies, permission to move, permission to feel, permission to know ourselves. Mm.
From a young age, I always go back to when I was a little girl. My mum put me in the most expensive clothes. I love my mum and they were great clothes, but I wasn't allowed to get them dirty because I was going to grow up to be a little lady. And so, like, to explore my body, I wasn't never given that autonomy. And especially in regards to sexual energy, what I know now of young adults, that even below the age of 10, there is this energy that young children are exploring, and it's not bad. It's just the cultivation of this new communication. And so the idea of their own personal touch and, to be felt and to understand what these rushes are so important in regards to that permission. And reducing that shame that most of us carry in regards to our sexual energy, and especially how to use it.
Gosh, that's quite a big thing. And it's really interesting you used the word shame. I felt shame rise as you spoke. And I've literally just recorded a podcast all about shame 2 days ago, which is going to be the one. Actually, when everyone's listening now, it will be the one that they've just heard the previous week. So that's so interesting. How as you said it, I recognize shame from my own childhood, actually. So this whole thing around how we um, the license that we feel to actually own our own body in whatever sense that represents for us. That's incredibly powerful and also incredibly delicate work as well, because there is, shame is a deeply, deeply tender emotion, and supporting people with navigating that is really tender work. I mean, it's reminding me actually of the work of Bessel van der Kolk. Oh,
Oh,
I know, Body
body
Keeps the
control. Yeah.
and how he's seen with people suffering from PTSD, from, sort of deep trauma, how yoga and movement can be absolutely, or are absolutely, fundamental to how they take themselves through that healing journey. It's one of the tools that he uses, within his trauma center. So how important it is that we have this connection. So Abby, just share with us a little bit of your background story, and what brought you to this work and this wisdom that you're now sharing with others.
I've always been fascinated by the body. And I started off as a beautician. And then I got into massage, and I just loved what massage could do and the understanding of another human's body and my own. And so I then went off and I studied Thai massage. I went to Thailand. I studied it in Europe as well as at home in England. And then I got into the yoga, and I went and lived out in India. Um, but yoga was this amazing healing tool. Even though I learned it to teach others, it was really what kind of got me more into me. And then there was a huge, what I would call shitstorm that occurred at the end of 2016. And it saw the plastic smile that even though I'd studied yoga for a very long time, I still put up. I hadn't really touched the core of me, if I'm being honest with you. And so my cousin dying from a brain hemorrhage very unexpectedly at the age of 36. I had a miscarriage at her funeral. My mum got skin cancer. My husband's oldest friend died of a virus. All of these things just stacked one on top of the other, and the trauma from my childhood, that I never really resolved because I was still trying to keep everyone happy. It just all started to crumble, and I couldn't keep it together. And me and my husband then went into our ways of communicating, which basically took us apart. And I felt that we was gonna end up coming apart. And so I took myself to a mixed movement camp in Miami where we were moving for 8 to 10 hours a day with martial arts and yoga and sparring and calisthenics and animal locomotion. And my body was just in that moment all the time. My mind didn't have the opportunity to dictate what was going on. I was sensing, I was feeling. And coming back to our conversation of shame earlier, Henny, at the end of the day, we had three classes that we had to do, and one of them was mobility, and it was something that I really wanted to get my teeth into because it just looked so beautiful. And at the end of the day, the room was a huge warehouse, and you had to go across the room using the moves that we had learnt that day. And so my teacher Cameron Shane is standing there, and at that time I had like huge figure issues where I wanted him to think I was great and awesome. And so I get down to go across the floor, and I freeze, and I could feel it. It rushed through my body, this shame that if I didn't get this right, I was bad. If I didn't get this perfect, like no one would like me. I would be awful. You should know what you're doing. You're a yoga teacher, you know your body, you've done this for so long. And I allowed that emotion to overwhelm me. And so I moved across the room within a comfort zone, and I got to the end, and I was disappointed in myself because I knew that I could have done better. And even if I had fallen, and even if I'd have got stuck, I would have moved better than being in my comfort zone. So from that experience, my period was this amazing 28-day experience where there was no pain, no emotional aggravation. It was phenomenal. So I started to research and talk about periods more, and then I found the red score, and then I was like, well, surely you can move with your menstrual cycle. There must be a way of moving. And so then I start to experiment with myself, and I start to reach out and find these amazing humans under the cracks, that are doing this kind of research. And this is what brought me into creating Project Woman, this space where women fully embrace and have autonomy and understand exactly what it is to have this female physique, and how they can, like, utilize is the wrong word, but how they can, and even harness, because this is like controlling it. It's not controlling it, it's learning how it wants to thrive, what it needs, and the choices that you have to enjoy yourself. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Mm. I love the fact that you sort of called out that it's not about controlling it, that it's about working with the body rather than trying to sort of shape it into something that we think it should be. That feels very powerful to me. And and gosh, that feeling of being at the edge of the room. Wow, that's um I am sure I speak for many people listening that knowing how that feels, just sort of like in our own experiences, that moment where you want to be the thing that you want to be because of your relationship or the way that you perceive others. That's a very visceral experience as well. I mean,
Oh, sorry, Henny.
no,
No, it's
go ahead.
interesting that this, like, who we want to be. So, who I believed I wanted to be was from watching someone else. So, there comes the comparison, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
wasn't, because at the end of the day, I move how I move. And that's been a huge unraveling, Henny, is I see someone move and I think, wow, I like that. And this is where my perception is started to change. And it's still in the process of this. I don't want to move like you. I want to understand the vocabulary that you use with your body so that I can experiment with that. I don't want to be like you. I want to be more like me. And I still don't know exactly what that is, if I'm being totally honest with you. And that's the gold, right? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, Abby, so that's really sparked a thought for me as well. And I'm not sure I'm quite at that point that you're at, but I know that if I come across someone who I sense is akin to me in some way, not someone that I know, but someone, I don't know, through like, Instagram or whatever, I naturally have an avoidance strategy. And I've examined this at length as to, okay, so what is going on in there? And one of the things that is going on is I know that I don't want to be influenced by someone that I sense is very similar to me, because it's really important to me that in the work that I do, that I speak with my own voice, that I stand in my own space, because I think in my life I've spent quite a lot of time sort of leaning toward, how somebody else might be, in order just to sort of like be a bit more like them, and even my voice might change, or that thing, like that sort of slight chameleon thing, because of admiring them and not admiring myself. And now it's sort of slightly gone the other way of like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to create this sort of slight distance between us. Maybe one day I'll get to a point where it's like, it's okay. I'm not going to be, I recognize now I'm not going to be influenced. I'll be all right. So I'm still in a learning space around that, but I get
Don't you think
that.
don't you think that's beautiful though? The fact that you know your limitations and your boundaries, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you know, one of the best things I heard, because especially when you work for yourself and you do these courses and you get coached and whatever in the realm of business, it's always been to compare yourself to other people. And I met this wonderful woman called Sally Poinsett Nash, and she turned around and said, "Why would I compare myself to anyone else? There's no one else like me." And I literally, that is one of my mantras that I have. There is no one like me. Why would I compare
Mm.
myself to anyone else? There is no one like me. I don't need to go out there and do that.
I can't remember who said it, but the quote, be yourself, everyone else is taken.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome, isn't it? That's a great one.
So so this, in this sort of aspect of being ourselves, this unique makeup that we all have, I'm really interested in one of the, that point that you said about, for those 28 days, that cycle of your period, that you realized that everything was different because of the, like, you've been doing this incredible sort of, range of movement. Um, and, and that recognition around being able to manage the fluctuations, the natural fluctuations in your system, using movement to help you sort of, move through your cycle in a more sort of peaceful way, perhaps is the right word. So, just to sort of talk to us a little bit about hormones, about, I mean, even, maybe female hormones, but also if there's sort of aspects that are just human hormones, and the impact that they have upon us in the different cycles that we all experience.
So for women, we we're we have our monthly cycle, which is called the infradian rhythm. Yeah, so we've got two cycles, which men generally use the circadian rhythm, which is 24-hour clock. That's your more masculine. But what's unraveled now is that we also have this monthly clock, the infradian rhythm, where women have been trying to fit 28 days into 24 hours. And therein lies the reason why we experience so many symptoms. Most of our symptoms, including PMS, is all related to stress. You know, and a lot of women say to me, but I'm not stressed. We have become so numb to what a stressor actually is. And there are underlying ones now that most women don't even know are there. Water supply in our food, the hormones that, is being pumped and sprayed on our foods are having such a big impact. So much so that young girls are starting their periods at 8, 9, and we're going through menopauses at 27. And so there is this, we need to look at this much deeper, I feel. And this is why, I'm having these conversations, because women need to understand the impact that today's lifestyle is having upon our hormones, and for men as well. Men, they have, very basically, because I don't want to confuse too much, but women's hormones are our estrogen and our progesterone. That's our yin and our yang. Our estrogen is the kickstarter, the high energy repair hormone, which is on our follicular phase of our cycle, which is from menstruation to ovulation. From ovulation to menstruation, it's more progesterone, and this is our sedating hormone. So they basically help to balance each other out. We have testosterone as well around our ovulation, which is much needed. Men are they also have the hormones, but they're mainly testosterone. So for women, this balance is so crucial. But because we are living in a 24-hour non-stop society, we are seeing our estrogen rising and a deficit in our progesterone. So we're losing that balance. And when we lose that balance, this is when we see all of these symptoms come through from, the likes of PMS, which is, it's so broad, isn't it? Because PMS is everything from emotional to physical to biochemical. There's so much going on there. Um, and it's not about giving a woman the pill to sort it out. This is not the answer. It might help short term, but long term, we need to be looking at the impact that this is having, and especially what kind of contraceptive pill you are taking. Because effectively, and the Red School brought this out, and I thought it was beautiful. You are suppressing your vital sign. You are suppressing the very core of who you are, and you numb out from all these amazing emotional experiences. All of these feelings and sensations that a period offers you. So hormones are very important, and our hormones are, what trigger our emotions, and our emotions are a communication with ourselves. They're telling us what we need, what is going on, and what we can do to, again, thrive.
So there's so much here around that um, modern solution of, oh, maybe not so modern actually, but modern solution of numbing out. This, uh, whether that's with alcohol, drugs, television, shopping, gambling, or medicine. We are taught, don't don't engage with this, distract with this. And I think that's something that, that we all experience in some way or another in our lives. Um, and I'm mindful actually of what you said there around, that balance and how important that is. And also, obviously, a lot of the work, how you and I met was because of the work that you do with women going through perimenopause and menopause, and obviously the work I do in that area as well. But I'm also really mindful with the the male clients that I work with, and also my male group of friends. I'm in my 50s now, so so are a lot of my friends, and observing the fluctuation that what I perceive as being a hormonal fluctuation for them as well. The testosterone dropping. I'm guessing, as they're sort of aging, and the impact that that has on them as well. And my feeling is that not enough is talked about with with this as well, it's wonderful that the menopause conversation has broadened out. It is amazing, and I'm so excited that it's become a word that people are comfortable using. It's just brilliant. It's not so brilliant if the answer is only HRT. One of the answers could be HRT
Yeah.
for an individual, but it may not be for another individual. And in the same way, it's not so brilliant if we're just using it as another way to segment, you know, genders and um, kind of isolate sort of men and women from having, a shared experience. And actually, I think men come into midlife with many of the same challenges that women have, and I'm really fascinated about why is that? What is going on there? Because my sense is it's as biological as it is for
Mm.
women. Um,
Do you know what, Henny? I took my kids to the park the other day because moving, my son got invited with his best friend to go down there. So I took Rafferty's little sister who's 18 months. She's down the park and she's playing, and this little boy comes over, and so they initially meet. He goes off, and he comes back again. And Autumn is very happy playing by herself. And so the little boy comes over and he's trying to take her thing and she's looking at him and she moves his hand away, like, this is mine. She's not even 2 yet. And he was roughly about the same age. So he tries again, a bit more forceful. So Autumn gets a handful of sand and throws it at him, just as a child would do. I'm there and, I'm Autumn, but I don't enforce this idea of sharing because at the age of 2, again, we're talking about shame, and I'm not okay with that on small children. And so the mum turns around to the small child and says to him, "Okay, let's go somewhere else, shall we?" And herein lies my point. She should have allowed the little boy to hit my little girl if that's what he wanted to do, because that way Autumn would have learned. And what we're doing now is we are teaching children from a very young age to be ashamed of how they feel and to not allow themselves to express themselves. Now, that might sound really harsh when I said about the little boy hitting them. He wouldn't have. They're tiny. But he would have been able to express anything that had come up for him. And Autumn would have learned how to communicate with another child. You can't throw sand at someone. And me telling her she can't do that, she doesn't understand that. She has to be able to feel it. And we talk about these young men. I had this conversation with a friend recently where from a young age men aren't allowed to be angry. They're not allowed to express the anger in a really functional and efficient way. They have to contain it. And could this be the reason why so many men are committing suicide? Because the lack of expression is what is creating this tension up here, and it's the only way they feel that they can get out of this situation. And this is why the body is so important. And I
yeah,
spoke of earlier about that experience of shame rushing through me. The body, as our dear friend said, the body holds the score. It knows, and it will always have the first reaction over the head. Your impulse is very quick when it comes to your body. And so, for men and women, the ability to express themselves, for you to be able to release, discharge, let go, unload, reduces your tension. It reduces the stress within your body. Therefore, your hormones aren't impacted. If you don't express that tension, release that load, you contain that stress and tension, and it builds and it builds, and it creates contractions, it creates inflammation, because you then start making poor choices for yourself. Sounds like mind-blowing when you think about it, but when we don't allow ourselves to discharge and we hold this tension, we start making poor choices in our food. We start making poor choices in our relationships because we're not present, we're not in our body. And therefore, we just surround ourselves with this toxic kind of environment and load that keeps us repeating the same habits over and over again.
and keeps us
Yeah.
held in, enclosed. I think that point around young men. I mean, that's a very, very, again, a very tender area. And, so there's so much conditioning at play here. And I've got a son, a 20-year-old son, and I know that there were times when he was little where I got him to stop crying. And the guilt I feel about that is vast, and is something that I've worked on to the extent I've actually written to him to say, to describe like a memory, and then got a message back going, lol. I can't even remember it. Don't worry, mum. For me, this realization as the woman that I am now, as opposed to the mother that I was then, of how important it is to allow children to express themselves. And actually it's through that, isn't it? It's through this ability to express ourselves that we're then able to not, or we're then able to perhaps more easily manage that triggered response. And one of the things that I've learned to do over the last few years, and I'm getting better and better at it. I don't always get it right, but I'm definitely getting better at it. Is when I notice that everybody's really irritating me, particularly my husband, is to then go and like hold him and go, okay, these are the things I'm frightened of. I'm frightened of such and such and such and such and such, and I'll like list, because I'll realize that actually the reason why everybody else is really irritating me is because I'm scared. And so, because that's my like being unsafe is my like baseline. And so being able to teach people how to feel what the thing is that's going on in their body is such important work. And I'm really mindful. I think I might have shared this with you when we first talked about doing the podcast, that I know when I was beginning my journey, which was also a catalogue of disaster at the end of 2016.
Wow.
2016, it was a big year for an awful lot of people, actually. I
Oh,
have noted. Anyone listening, you have an answer about what happened in 2016,
we need to look into this,
logically.
Jenny. I'm
Yeah,
interested.
yeah. A lot of people that I know who've since then gone on an enormous journey. But one of the things that I remember saying to the nutritionist that I ended up working with was I felt like I'd been disconnected at the neck. I couldn't feel anything going on. And what sparked it for me was that I realized I couldn't feel it in my digestive system. But then as I said it, I thought, God, can I feel anything apart from wanting to cry? That was, or laugh, I mean, like, I was happy and unhappy simultaneously, like we are. And that feeling of being able to come into the body, I think um, that is vital for men and women, really. And it begins young.
Mm, definitely. Yeah, I, s- I totally resonate with you about the guilt you feel, and I'm sure most parents out there can. For my little boy, I feel that I was probably still emotionally unready when I look back at when I had him, which was, I mean, that was 34. I mean, that was considered old when I think my mum had me when she was 21. But I I remember when I had my little boy, I realized how I was carrying my my mum and my grandmother's like communication, which was to shout, you know, couldn't hold the charge. And this is something that I've been working on for a long time, Annie, to hold that charge when something comes to you. For me, it's initially anger because of fear. And to, it's all like, oh my goodness, anything happens, it's that kind of thing, because I couldn't hold my charge. I didn't know how to. That felt scary. And one day I was standing at the sink and my little boy was in his high chair and something had happened and I just screamed. Not him, but I screamed towards the window and I turned around and I terrified him. And I realized, I need to do something. I don't want to be this shouty person. And so when I used to, when I used to lose it and I would shout, I would then sit down with him and say, right, I want you to roar like a lion at mummy. And at first he'd be upset and he'd go, no. I go, come on, I want you to go, rah. And he'd go into my face, rah. And then by the third one, it got so loud, he'd just scream in my face. And I go, do you feel better? And it was just giving him that autonomy, Henny. I never got that, if I'd have shouted at my mum, woo, I wouldn't have even dreamed of doing it. She terrified me till I was about 18. But to give him that autonomy, I see now, like, he's always been like a very shy little boy. Now, naturally, he's got this amazing conversation, it's starting to come through. And so it's so important to give these children that space to shout and scream. I mean, my daughter, sometimes she makes my ears bleed, but got to let her do it. She's just let her scream. Got to let her get it out. If I stop it, the reason why I stop it is because I'm uncomfortable because of the conditioning that I've had in my childhood, which was that's not okay. How dare you? The children should be seen and not heard.
So there's something kind of about a bit of kind of joyfulness actually about letting the thing out rather than what if the neighbour's here? I was never allowed to do that. What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? Those kind of stories. That feels because so one of the things that we did with my son was got a boxing, what do you call it?
A punch bag.
Punch bag. Yeah, got a punch bag for him, and also used to make bread a lot.
After he'd hit the punch bag. I like
Yeah,
that.
because it's like you can thump it. You can like really, really, and it's I think not even knowing what I was doing, but just sensing that was a useful thing to do, like to move the energy through the body. And there's something that you talk about, which is about how physical communication is larger than verbal communication. I love that idea as well, that we can come into our body. I've now got an image of you. You sometimes share on Instagram how you've got a space at your old home. We'll
Yeah.
have a space at your new home, I'm presuming as well, where you just go and move, and it's not dance, and it's not yoga, and but it is dance, but it's like this animal, beautiful, full-bodied extension and joyful space inhabitation.
I like that. Sounds epic, Henny. Yeah, no, it's so important. It's so important for me. And we've all used it. All of my family use it, or used it. This morning I was in a bit of a goodbye ceremony as well, where I was just doing some really basic breathing and movement, which then turned into like which then turned into this kind of like wild movement. And it's allowing, because energy just flows, doesn't it? It just wants to flow. But when we think about it, that's when we get all twisted and caught up in ourselves. If you allow the body to just move, it will always untangle itself. And it's understanding that collaboration. It's like words put together that create the consistent flow. That's how you make a conversation, isn't it? The body's the same. When we can allow ourselves to just move, we allow the energy to move out of us, like that emotion, that feeling, that thought, that sensation. It's when we think about the emotion, the sensation, the thought, that we become wrapped around it. And then the movement becomes like really sketchy and jagged. And this is what I say about the physical communication. You can tell when someone's angry, or if they're in defense, or if they're sad, because their body will just communicate it. You know, the shoulders drop, the gut drops, the knees are weak, the feet collapse. You know, we could even go one better now with understanding how someone's eating. You know, I can tell when someone's blood sugars are out because of the excess weight that they'll carry around here. If they're highly stressed, the goes to the stomach. If there's excess estrogen, we're talking about excess water and weight on the thighs and the hamstrings. You know, you can just, the body is constantly communicating that something is or isn't okay. And then that's what, you know, that's our choice then to support it, get what it needs.
That's new information. So I knew the thing about the cortisol, but that's really interesting about obviously did a mental map of my body as you just it's like, I might have them all.
Yeah, but you could tell because when I was first learning that, I'd go off and my mentor would go, "You're thinking about this, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yes." I'm just putting this all together. You know, and again, so up on the chest we've got testosterone. You know, around the waist is thyroid, and this is just a concept whose name I forget. Excuse me. It's the something theory. Um,
Well, we'll stick it in the show notes.
yeah.
You can track it down and send it over in case people are wanting to find out a bit more.
There it is, your body is telling you.
Yeah.
And then from that, you know, if you've got this excess waste here, this is what, so you start to do this, and so you collapse and you're short of breath, and then you're kind of emotionally stuck here. You don't feel motivated, you don't feel supported, you don't feel, you know, all of these feels, they
Tell
all.
us tell us what you do with Project Woman then. How do you work with women?
So with Project Woman, I've got my membership, I've got a 7-week course, and I do one-to-ones. So the membership is this space where it's almost like everyone's personal journal. I like women getting on there and saying, if you're still menstruating, day 28, I hate the world. Rah! Is anyone else out there? You know, or day 1, bliss, love it. Or just sharing whatever in regards to their health and how they're feeling, because we
Because
don't
we're
get that a lot.
not taught to share
Yeah.
like that.
No.
Okay.
And on there are movement classes that cover everything from the physical in certain areas of your cycle to the emotional and the movement. And then the 7-week course takes you through the education of basically your hormones, stress, and how to move with your body. There's, you know, I just give you all of the information that I've garnered, studied, researched, and felt myself, so that you can really know what it is to have a woman's body, but to have your body. You know, I tell you, this is what research we have, this is the outcomes, this is what I've experienced, but does it work for you? And then you have the choice to take this on. And then I have my one-to-ones, and I do days with women where we put together these lifestyles as such. And I also study kinesiology, so I specialize in women's hormones. And so I take you through your gut health, I take you through your stress health, I take you through your hormonal health, I take you through any supplements that you need, and then we create this lifestyle of health and well-being around that, where you take that away and you put it into place. Because you
Very
know, this,
personalized.
yeah, the thing with the kinesiology, and I love, and if for those that don't know what it is, it's muscle testing to find out what's going on inside your body. Your body literally tells you and me what is turning it off and on. You know, it's phenomenal. I can do food testing, and by putting egg on a certain part of your body, your muscles will switch off, and that's saying, I don't like it, I don't want it. It might taste nice, but it's not working for you right now. And people just, it's mind blowing.
Mm.
Mind blowing. And yet, you know, we we get told that we should be, by certain people, that we should be told we should be eating this and we should be taking this. And yet I have so many people, they come to me with bags of nutrition supplements, and most of it their body doesn't even want. They just need. And yet they're taking all of this stuff without even realizing, you know, because again, we're not given the autonomy to know who we really are and what we need.
That comes back to those sort of blanket solutions again, and not really listening in to ourselves, and also having the that word autonomy. It's obviously been a bit of a thread through the conversation. So I'm going to cough, but that autonomy to also say no, I don't think that is right for me. So I'm not going to do that. Learning to say no. I mean, there's been a lot of work around that, particularly with women, obviously, around, how we can become conditioned just to do what we're told to do because of our upbringing, our culture, our society. Um, and even when we think that we're very, sort of confident and know our own mind, when you dig in, you can still see this unwillingness to push up against the stuff that we're being told we should do, whether that's by someone on Instagram or our grandmother or whoever it is. So yeah, so autonomy, the ability to listen. I think there's also a big thing in here as well, Abby, about um, what I'm hearing is that this connection with our body, this connection with our emotion, this this willingness to express ourselves is actually what enables us to then be able to move through life without such a kind of triggered, high emotion, low, uh, you know, prefrontal cortex, so activation way of being, so that we are able to be much calmer because we're able to recognize what we're feeling and express it appropriately. And that doesn't mean express it in a suppressed way, but express it appropriately. Am I understanding that right? Is
Yeah.
that
It is basically to stop being offended. Stop being offended by life. It's interesting, isn't it? Like being offended. And something that I have unraveled myself from, because really, when you are when you are happy with yourself, when you know who you really are, when you know what's important, you realize that actually what the people are saying is nothing to do with you, all their own stuff, and they can't really hurt you. And that's for me one of the key aspects of movement is the powerful untangling that it inspires from this like reactivity that you talk about. I Do you know what? My brain has just gone completely off there, and I've
well,
lost the thread.
well, you're allowed. That's okay. I give
I'm
you
like 26
autonomy.
with my bleed, and there were so many ways that I could go with that conversation then.
Well,
And my
what I heard actually, that the image that I had was that actually by using movement, by using this sort of inhabitation of space movement, um, we're able to do that in such a way that is incredibly freeing, which when we're in our, you know, day-to-day life of interacting with other humans and, and the rest of the world, um, we're not able to be that free because of practicalities partly, it's just how it is, but actually to give ourselves license to have that bit of space to be able to move in the way that we want to. I actually, at the last retreat I ran, I think I mentioned this to you. I name checked you, Abby, and um, we did some movement. I got, everybody switched their cameras off, and I played a beautiful piece of music, and I just sort of talked us through just kind of like just moving our bodies. And it was so gorgeous because after the retreat, I had so many people write to me to say, Oh my God, I've been doing it. I woke up this morning and I just put some music on and I just moved. And it was, I think because of using that word movement rather than dance, it takes all the value judgment out of it.
Yep.
And it stops it being something that you compare to others. Or, oh, well, Mary's a lovely dancer, oh, I'm
But
so
not
sorry,
me.
Susie. You're not a
Yeah,
good dancer.
yeah. She got 2
Like,
legs late. Yeah.
we can all move, we can all sing.
I always say,
We-
Henny, you can never get movement wrong unless you stop. You can never get it wrong. You just got to keep moving.
And even in stillness, I would say there is movement too. There is something when it's that really, really present movement, stillness, there's something that's incredibly there's a deep connection there between that and the feeling of being in flow in movement too. But the stopping, that's a different thing. That kind of takes us back to your story actually of being at the edge of that room and feeling that sense of shame. I love how conversations do this. Just
The
bring
loop.
us back to the beginning. So So, Abby, that conversation took turns that I just had no idea where it was going to go, and I really should have known, having spent time with you before, that you and I, like, our conversation always sort of threads off into beautiful directions. But there's a question that I always ask guests on the podcast, and it feels particularly pertinent considering the shift that you're making in your own life right now. But if you see this time in your life as a chapter in your book of life, what would that chapter heading be?
He's ready.
And is there a subtitle, a few words that sit underneath?
Show me what you've got.
She's ready. Show me what you've got.
Yeah.
Oh,
There it
that's nice, Abby.
You know what? And just as I said that, I can hear my children arriving.
Oh. They'll show you what they've got.
Here we go. Mummy's ready. She's ready.
Brilliant, Abby. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for taking us through such a dynamic journey, actually. It felt like there was an awful lot of movement in that conversation.
Yeah, let's do it again, Henny. Can you hear the drum? It was a pleasure, Henny. Thank you so much, my darling. So good to be here. And yeah, let's talk again soon. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Take care, Abby.
Mwah.